there's a lot of product being dumped out. There's so many different types of products being dumped out. So I mean, there's a production of so many different things, but at the same time, they are making it where there are those parallels, those certain cards that are low numbered that are a little bit more scarce. I mean, that makes sense. They have to do that to keep people interested enough in the hobby to want to chase these big cards. I think is a really big selling point.
Right first to the corner.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wax Talk with Raw Mints. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Bruce.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking to you about the vintage and modern card markets, how they compare to one another, what you can expect from each of them, and how it relates to the current market and how the prices are fluctuating and whatnot. But before we get into it, if you could please be sure to subscribe if you aren't already. If you could rate and review, this really does help us grow, really helps us get the word out about the podcast. If you could share with somebody you know, that would be even better. Maybe they might have an interest in sports cards and they don't know where to start. We can definitely try to help them navigate that space. So, like I said, thank you for listening. If you're already subscribed, we really do appreciate it. And without further ado, let's get into it. All right, man. So like I said, today's topic is going to be about the vintage and modern markets. But before we get into explaining that, what would you consider the vintage market to be?
The vintage market is anything. We're getting older now, so it's hard to say. But when I think of vintage, I think of 40s, 50s, and we're talking primarily baseball. 40s, 50s, and so up to about 1980. For baseball, at least. When you look at basketball and football, it's kind of, you have like Jordan, which is 86, 87. I feel like that is considered vintage now. But from a time when I was growing up, it was primarily like, I thought of vintage as like the old school stuff. I mean, you even go to the Cracker Jack tobacco cards. I mean, in baseball, like to me, that's kind of like what vintage means to me. I've primarily grew up collecting baseball. Roberto Clemente has been one of my favorites for a while. So I've kind of stuck around always trying to pick up vintage. So as far as talking about vintage and modern, for anybody that's especially new to collecting, it's fun to get into both vintage and modern. You can still pick up an old 50s card, probably in decent condition for less than a hobby box of Prism basketball or something would be, much cheaper actually. But just getting that all-around knowledge of knowing what you're dealing with. Talked about Beckett, learning how to read different years and prices and products and stuff like that. Like to me, I think of Topps and Bowman, even Leaf. I feel like when you started getting into the hobby especially, I mean, you were still learning about Topps and Bowman rookies as well. I mean, before you even got into Prism, wasn't that on your mind, wouldn't you say? Older products or stuff that doesn't exist in football and basketball anymore?
Yeah, for sure. That's always been, I really like the older designs of cards. Even, I mean, the vintage cards that I've picked up, I haven't picked up that much true vintage cards, but I've picked up a lot of late 80s, early 90s cards, which I guess, like you said, we're getting older, so I guess we have to start calling that vintage.
Yeah, especially people that are getting into it now. It's hard for them to think of like picking up a 1950s card. It's just different.
I definitely had knowledge. I mean, when it comes to the sports side of things, of older players, of the Hank Aaron's, the Roberto Clementes, obviously the Babe Ruths, Ty Cobbs, those type of people, those players, those greats of the game. But I never really was focused on vintage at that time. I was mainly focused on modern, I guess I would say. But I definitely have always had a real respect. I know you're huge on vintage, and you've got quite a bit of really, really cool vintage cards that I really like and I'm interested in.
One of the big subtopics of this is the scarcity of cards. And when it comes to vintage, it's not like you can easily obtain. For me, like with baseball, like I like 1959 Topps. Is a really, really colorful, beautiful set, but it's not like you could go out and find a box of this, let alone a pack of a pack of this.
Yeah.
And to find these cards in high grade is also very tough too, unless you're buying these cards graded, which can run you a pretty penny by itself. Just the overall originality of vintage is cool to me. You know, having just a rookie card, one rookie card, you know, and this is even Jordan, you know, he really has a true 86, 87 Fleer rookie card. He does have some extended rookies, as I would say, with like Star or whatever. He has some Nike promo card or whatever. But it's like if you're gonna chase like the holy grail of certain players, they only have one rookie, maybe two. I mean, Mickey Mantle. A lot of people go to his 52 Topps, which is a rookie card. It's the first year of Topps, but his 51 Bowman is still his true rookie card. So just obtaining these cards now is a little bit more difficult, and getting into the scarcity of it. It's like, if you buy a modern product, the scarcity involves pulling that 101. So you're paying a premium for a box of cards hoping to get that 101.
So for people that might not know, what is 101? What does that mean?
A 101 is just the serial number on the front or the back of the card literally says 101, meaning that that's the only card for that particular player of that product, of that variant. And I mean, that's the card. So that's all serial numbered cards. It lets you know for the variant of whatever you pull, whatever color it may be or variant, that it's serial number to just that specific number, that's the only number of cards made.
Like in existence.
Yeah, in existence. So that's a scarcity of modern cards now. Whereas like realistically with vintage, you don't have those numbered cards, but you know that they don't pop up often, you know, especially in a high grade. Finding vintage cards in sealed wax is almost unheard of unless you're vendor traveling from different states to sometimes different countries, you know, finding people's in their attic, they have these sealed collections. I mean, that kind of stuff still exists. For us to be able to find something like that, I mean, that's just like a fairy tale, to be honest. But that's the overall scarcity between vintage and modern. To me, it's more appealing to search for those vinyl cards in high grade, because there's just so much product out there anymore. I mean, with modern, I mean, you've realized that too. When you were first getting into the hobby, there's so much product. You're just only focusing on what's out there with the modern world, you know, before you really got into vintage, where I think you've picked up a graded Roberto Clemente, or a couple of them even.
Yeah, I actually picked up a few Roberto Clemente slabs graded cards from the 1972 Topps release.
Yeah, and that's one of your favorite designs.
That's my favorite design of vintage for sure, without a doubt. I'm so glad they're giving it a shout out, throwback to the new Topps Heritage that's coming out. I'm actually going to pick up Heritage.
It's caught up to that year, man. I mean, we're in the 1972 design on it, and that's popular for a lot of collectors, you know. And it's just cool to hear that that's kind of a set that you went towards, you know, when you were trying to get into vintage. It's just, I don't know, it's a colorful set.
Yeah, man, I just really like the design. I like the font. I like the overall look and color of the cards. I like the border. It's super retro looking. And yeah, 1972, those, I picked up a couple. I think I picked up a couple inserts of Roberto Clemente, and then I also picked up the Roberto Clemente in action. If you look it up, you'll see what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's definitely my favorite design, and that's like one of the main players actually when it comes to baseball that I've picked up.
Yeah, there's a lot of room, man. I mean, for vintage and modern, and just doing the research and just figuring out. For us, it's like, again, we're a little bit older, but I'm born in 87, but I'm not necessarily going to go after the 1987 set or whatever, unless Barry Bonds, Bo Jackson. It's kind of cool that's my birth year. And you're what, 1990?
Yep, 1990.
So you're like, okay, I'll go
Frank
for
Thomas.
Frank Thomas, Sammy Sosa. That's just kind of a cool way, a nostalgic way to also get into collecting, or just depending on how long you've been collecting. Like for me, it's like a lot of the junk wax 90s, mid 90s. I mean, they have a special place in my heart because that's what I remember opening, you know, for whatever sport it may be.
Right. Yeah, and that's actually the majority of the older cards that I have picked up as far as graded cards go, especially with the junk wax era stuff. So the junk wax era, for those of you that don't know, was a time period, I would say, what would you say, like 1987 to 94-ish?
Yeah, at least 80s, '87 to mid '90s for sure.
Mid 90s, yeah, where it was just a time in the hobby where the hobby was super popular at the time, and so they were overproducing, like massively overproducing cards. They kind of pretty much flooded the market of the amount of print runs when it comes to certain products, and the demand didn't keep up with it, and it kind of caused the market to crash, which I think the comparison to what's going on now, I think that there's a big difference. And this is probably a topic for another episode, but I think there's a huge difference between the junk wax era. I know there's a lot of people that say, oh, the junk wax era 2.0 is happening. I personally disagree with that. I think that in that time period from 87 to 94, if that's kind of the range that we were talking in, that was before the internet. That was before it was worldwide. That was before there were so many different ways to sell and to buy products. So there was a limitation to, even though the demand was really high in that times, the reason why the market crashed was because there wasn't enough demand to keep up with the production of product. But now that not only the recent boom in sports cards and not only the amount of avenues to pick up sports cards, I think that kind of is a huge difference in the junk wax era to now. There's just a lot more access to it. So there's the increased demand is able to be met worldwide because of the internet. I know there's a lot of cards that are getting overgraded at the time being, and it's usually a lot of base cards. But like you said, when it comes, this kind of ties into scarcity. You're going to be looking for parallels. Most importantly, you're going to be looking for, in my opinion, serial numbered cards, because if a card even is numbered to 250, there's literally only 250 of that specific card in existence, and it's usually a parallel. And so that's, you talk about scarcity. If there's only 250 in the world, imagine when it comes down to 100 card, to serial number to 100, serial number to 50, 25, 10, 5 to 5, 1 of 1. I think that there's definitely going to be, if there hasn't already been, a push towards the more rare serial numbered cards to kind of deter from the overgraded, overproduced base cards,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that mainly the similarity between the junk wax era from the mid 80s to mid 90s compared to now is there's a lot of product being dumped out. There's so many different types of products being dumped out. So there's a production of so many different things, but at the same time they are making it where there are those parallels, those certain cards that are low numbered that are a little bit more scarce. That makes sense. They have to do that to keep people interested enough in the hobby to want to chase these big cards. I think is a really big selling point. One thing that I think with the hobby, going into, another subtopic for this, is understanding second and third year cards. Second and third year cards for rookies that we go back to Jordan, 86, 87, that's his true rookie. So his second and third year card, if his rookie card is so expensive, his second and third year card are only going to rise in value.
Correct.
You'll probably see this more even with football. Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, their rookies have exploded, dude, like over the last couple months. And their second and third year cards, there's still a little bit of room there, but I would bet that they're going to go up.
Right.
Same thing with bring in hockey, Wayne Gretzky rookie, second and third year high grade cards. They're starting to fetch a premium.
Same thing with Messi. Same thing with Messi cards, Ronaldo cards.
Yeah, exactly.
04 Messi Mega Cracks cards are so high, even though in comparison to a Michael Jordan rookie card, they're a fraction of the cost, which that's a little inside tip. But second, third year cards, they're definitely nowhere near the price as his 2004 rookie cards are. So they're still, like I said, in every sport, there's kind of the room to grow. And when we talk about, the popularity of second and third year cards, the reason why there's a demand for that is because there's just people are just getting priced out of the true rookie cards, which it just happens. Like I'm not trying to spend that much.
You see it with modern cards too. A Prism Silver Luka Doncic rookie. is very high in a high grade, and you look at a second, or leaning towards a third year, whatever. I mean, those silver cards are still, they're creeping up in value, but they're still relatively affordable
Mm-hmm.
compared to the true rookie. For me, it's like that's a again a to be determined type thing, a long term wait to see if that really even matters. Whereas with the more established vintage players, that those prices are already rising, and they're going to continue to rise, especially for the big money cards, Mickey Mantle rookie, Sandy Koufax, Roberto Clemente, like those big rookies. I mean, second and third year cards, and for the most part, because they are considered vintage, there's going to be more people going from that span of what's their rookie card to their last card. For me, 1955 tops Roberto Clemente, all the way up to 1973 tops, which is his last card. It becomes a thing for me to acquire all of these cards, and once I do, from there, I try to acquire the higher grade of them, and keep moving and flipping that way until you get to what I guess you would call it your set registry, like with PSA, what you're comfortable with of holding for your collection, or what you think is going to gain more value in the long run as a set. I feel like that's something to look into as well, because with vintage, you don't have as many cards, again, as many products. So
Mm-hmm.
compared to Zion right now, you have his rookie card, and you have all the different other rookie cards from different sets. And then you have all the following years of those different products. He's going to
Mm-hmm.
have so many cards. Most of these players now have so many cards as compared to a lot of the older guys.
Oh, so many, like so many more. You got Prism, Optic, Chronicles. You have Panini Threads. You have Status. You have Select,
Illusions. It just goes on
Illusions,
and on and on.
NBA Hoops Premium Stock. Like there's just so many rookie cards.
And it gives more people stuff to collect him. It's good for the hobby overall, but I mean, with the modern stuff, it's like everybody's just focused on that one big card to either pick up or flip. And all these other little subsets and different things, they kind of get neglected a little bit. Whereas for all we know, Hoops, Zion, Jaw rookies could become kind of close to Prism. I mean, that's obviously not likely. The Chrome cards are a lot more popular, but I don't know, over time, it's just like these different sets. I mean, people get into a little bit more. It's just kind of,
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I think that there's, again, psacard.com/pop that shows you all you really need to know about the modern era that we're in, of, if you were to say, if the most desirable card today of the modern era is a Prism card, not necessarily the parallels, but as far as product goes, Prism is probably one of the top. That and Topps Chrome, Bowman Chrome. Topps Chrome and Bowman Chrome for if you're gonna say, again, if Prism, Topps Chrome, Bowman Chrome are the top cards for all sports, compare that to a vintage Topps card, a vintage Bowman card. Compare those pop reports, and you'll see that there's so many base cards. There's just so many cards being graded now, and again, to tie back to scarcity, there's a reason why. Not only because vintage players are going to fetch a premium, because obviously they're in the history books, their names are sealed, they're sealed and delivered,
yeah, established.
it's established, they're legends of the game, which, again, like you said, you always say to be determined for modern era players, but they're going to fetch a higher premium, one, because they are established, because they're legends of the game, and there's not a whole lot of them in circulation as far as graded cards go. And you've said in the past, not every vintage collector likes to get their cards encapsulated. They still want to be able to feel them. They still want to be able to smell them and hold and feel the texture of the vintage cards. So there's not even going to be a whole lot of graded examples either.
Yeah, and that's one thing I love about vintage too, because it's not the same with modern. Because if you pull a silver Prism rookie of someone really good, like, you're not gonna want to touch it and get fingerprints all over it.
Yeah.
It's just a different way of collecting now. And I'm the same way too. I've always tried to take really good care of my cards, whether they're vintage or modern. But
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just a whole different thing,
Just
and
leave them
there's still
up.
ways to handle your cards and not mess them up, you know what I mean? And you have to examine them anyway, but it's different now, man. So realistically, comparing vintage to modern, if you had an opportunity, and first off, I'll let you pick a sport. We're gonna go vintage or modern, so just pick a sport right now.
Let's go basketball.
Okay, basketball. So we'll pick a key vintage rookie card. Let's not even call it. Let's not even say a Jordan rookie. Let's say something like a Larry Bird Magic Johnson rookie card, which has
Okay.
Dr. J on it.
Okay.
We can't go PSA 10 because I'm not sure what those go for, but say we're settling for like a PSA 8 of that card. You
Okay.
have that comparison. Would you rather pick that card up, or would you rather go for, let's say, a player like Kevin Durant, who's a lot of people continue to talk about? You watch card show videos and just people talking about the market. There's so many people picking up Kevin Durant. Let's say like a comparison from the Bird Magic rookie PSA 8 to a, let's even go a PSA 10 Topps Chrome Refractor Kevin Durant.
Mhm.
Let's say it's even an orange Topps Chrome Refractor Kevin Durant.
Mhm.
I mean, what would you pick for? I mean, you have this card for free. Someone's offering, hey, just pick one of these cards. I mean, you got to hold on to it for a while, see what happens. I mean, what are you going with?
Dude, that's so tough. That's actually a really good. That's actually a really good
And
comparisons.
I may be off on the variation as far as like what the best Kevin Durant is. I'm just, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? I know his
I think
cards
even like a
fetch such
Topps
a
Chrome
premium.
PSA 10 is pretty high.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, a refractor, we get into the color
Yeah.
orange and stuff like that. But I
I mean,
mean,
if we could, if those were, I mean, I think those are two good examples as far as players go. And if those two cards were worth, let's just say they were worth the same amount, whatever the Kevin Durant Topps Chrome parallel comparison is, honestly, dude, I'm gonna I'm gonna have to go with the vintage card, dude. I'm gonna have to go with the Larry Bird Magic Johnson, man. I'm just gonna have to. Their names are they're in the history books already, and not to say
yeah,
that KD is a beast, and the Nets are doing so great right now, but he's injury prone. He's been injured before. He's a team jumper. I know that's tough to say, but I'm not a huge fan of the team jumpers, even LeBron. Larry Bird, Celtics, Magic Johnson, Lakers. That's all you know. I would
yeah,
have to go with that card, dude. I just would. Especially because it's much older than the KD card. And I will forever eat my words if somebody is really offering me this. I will eat my words forever if KD ends up being the best player in the world to ever play the game, even bigger than Michael Jordan, bigger than Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. But
yeah.
yeah,
And
I'm gonna have
again,
to
I
pick
mean,
that card.
the reason why I ask you that is because you said you've dabbled into vintage a little bit, but not too heavy. But that just goes to show you, if you're making a bet compared to the vintage in the modern market, I mean, you're going to lean more towards the vintage because you have those already established players. That's why
Right.
you see a lot of people betting on Mike Trout or LeBron James, players of that caliber, because they could get injured at any given moment, and their cards, they're going to make it to the Hall of Fame. They already have the stats built up behind them, and so does
Right.
KD. But looking at it from a perspective of the accomplishments already from those players in that vintage era, as opposed to KD, who we hope that he continues to reach that true potential,
For
stays
sure.
healthy, maybe wins a championship, regardless, just continues to put up those numbers. For all we know, he may be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, again, that's kind of the toss up in getting into vintage or modern, is what you're trying to invest in. What do you like? I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
And doing your research, because there's definitely a lot of vintage cards out there, even graded cards, even high graded cards that are for sale that are dirt cheap, but they might be players that never really did anything in their career. But I might still just pick some of those cards up because I just like the design. I like the fact that I have a card that was printed in 1962. That's
Yeah,
that's
shoot
crazy to
shoot for
me.
that. Yeah, you got to shoot for that, because we're losing the era of people picking up these cards because they grew up watching that specific team, that player. You're basically living on vicariously through stories from friends and family, them growing up seeing that catch or that shot that won the game, and you live
Mm-hmm.
on through that, through the vintage era. That's another cool thing, that'll never pass. There'll always be that
Right.
history, and every day there's history being made in sports. So you just
For
gotta
sure.
choose wisely on what you choose to invest in, but just continue to pick up what you like in general, or stories that intrigued you in some sort of way,
For
just
sure.
stuff that has meaning.
Exactly. Well, since you asked me that question, I have a question for you.
Okay.
If someone were to be offering you a similar deal where they said, I'm giving you one of these two cards away, if you had to pick, would you rather have, let's say, a Black Velocity 2018 Optic Black Velocity, which is numbered to 25, PSA 10 Messi
Ooh.
in his Argentina kit, or would you rather have a PSA 5 Mega Cracks Messi? Which would you rather have long term? You had to hold it for a very long time.
This
You had
is
to choose one.
my answer. I mean, the black velocities are just dope cards. They're beautiful. I
They're
mean,
nasty.
especially when we consider going, if you're talking about Optic Messi Argentina kit, I mean, that's his first year Optic card. So that's a big deal in a sense. But for me, I'm leaning more towards that true rookie. I'm going with that Mega Cracks. I mean, to be honest, I would probably even take a PSA authentic Mega Cracks. As long as it had decent eye appeal, I'm going with that all day, man. I mean, I'm more about rookie cards, true rookie
Oh wait,
cards.
wait, 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 wait. Let me rephrase that. Let me rephrase that. I didn't mean the true rookie Mega Cracks. I didn't mean obviously the Mega Cracks. I'm talking about like the Campeones uh Barca, like kind of like the one I picked up recently. No, a PSA 5 Mega Cracks Messi. That's like four. That's like if you bought all 25 PSA 10 Black Velocity optics. I'm talking about like the Campeones Messi. If it was like a PSA 5.
I'm definitely going with that Mega Cracks. I think that one thing that we've been trying to do is when it comes to Messi cards, I mean, yeah, it's cool to try to cop some 2014 Prism World Cup. I mean, first year Prism, also Optic, that'd be first year Optic. I think that that's very important, but leaning more towards, and we're not even talking second or third year cards. I mean, when it comes to Messi, I mean, we're going for second, third, fourth, fifth year cards, as long as they're
You're
kind of
right. Right.
obscure. If we can get them graded, that's awesome. You just don't see them pop up that much. So trying to pick up raw
Exactly.
cards, when we get them in, we're hoping that they're decent, legit. If we send them into PSA, we're just hoping they even get a grade and they aren't tampered with in some way. It's a huge
Right.
gamble when it comes to soccer, but I would definitely lean more towards older Messi. As much as I love that optic set, I have a couple of base optic and the regular Donruss. I know you have that PSA 10 optic hollow Messi, which I know you recently listed. But at the same time, what are you going to do when that sells? You're going to reinvest into an older Messi,
Exactly.
and you can't go wrong.
So let's get into our pickups and flips of the week. What would be your pickup of the week, man?
My pickup of the week is nothing super crazy, but you don't really come across it graded too often. It was a 2017-18 Topps Bundesliga stickers of Kai Havertz, which I do like Kai Havertz. I know, his optic and some of the other cards have gone up in value. This is one I don't see pop up that much. It seems relatively affordable. I picked it up in a BGS 8.5 just because it was the only slab available. I saw some raw that I considered picking up just to get it slabbed. We know how hard it is to grade stickers, so I thought an 8.5 was a fair deal. I picked it up for I think around $36.
Yeah, that's a good pickup, man. That's dope.
What about you?
Yeah, my pickup would have to be I got a 1986. It's called the Question of Sport. That's the product. 1986 Question of Sport Diego Maradona. It's nowhere near his rookie card, but this card is in decent shape. I really like the photography on it.
Yeah.
It's it's a rare card. I've hardly ever even seen this card. I think it's only got a couple in existence as far as grading goes, and I picked that up for about $26,
Wow.
which is a pretty good steal
Yeah.
for 1986 for like kind of a vintage
For
card.
sure.
But yeah, I'm looking. It still hasn't arrived yet, but it's definitely on its way, and it looks so sick. I can't wait to get it graded. As far as my flip of the week, I would have to say you're probably gonna hate this one. I let go of my 2018 Topps Chrome Jadon Sancho PSA 10
Oof.
Champions League rookie card. I let go of it. I sold it for $4.90, which is a pretty big come up considering I got this card for super cheap. I want to say pennies on the dollar.
I mean, are we talking like $1, less than
Yeah.
$1? Like,
Less than $1. Paid $13 to get it graded at the time. So yeah, that's a huge come up. When you need to make money, man, there's always ways to do it. But yeah, $4.90 for my flip of the week. What about you?
that's definitely a flip. Speaking of Topps Chrome Champions League, I sold a 2017-18 Topps Chrome UEFA Champions League Mbappe PSA 10. I picked that card up on Amazon for, I want to say, less than $40. This was a while back ago, and sold it for 1,000. So I mean,
picked it up
again,
raw
I feel
on
like
Amazon, right?
Mbappe's, yes, raw on Amazon for less than $40. Sent it in for grading, paid the fee, came back at 10. I was hoping for a 9. I sent in multiple Mbappe cards. That was the only one that got a 10. So I figured might as well flip it. I mean, his prices have come up. I do think that his prices are going to continue to go up, but at the same time, I mean, I do have other cards of him. So it just made sense to just flip that and just reinvest in some other smaller stuff and start over.
For sure. Right on. That's always whenever we make big flips like that, we always try to make it a point to reinvest something. So it's never lost.
Yeah, you have to, especially as collectors. As collectors, you have to reinvest. Otherwise, it sucks getting rid of cards, but just know that cardboard is always replaceable.
For sure. Most definitely, man. All right. So do you kind of think that wraps up the episode about the vintage and modern market?
Yeah, I think it does. I just want people to do their research and just see that there are more options than just all the modern products out now. It's not necessarily junk wax, and even with junk wax, there's nothing wrong with it as long as you're getting into collecting and you have a desire to learn about the different products and all the years. Cards have been happening for quite some time now.
For sure. Right on, man. Well, we really do hope that you enjoyed today's episode. We hope that you may have learned something new, or you enjoyed what we had to say about both the vintage and modern markets when it comes to sports cards. But please be sure to subscribe if you aren't already. If you could rate, review, share it with somebody that might be interested in sports cards. It's a really great hobby to have. It's brought a lot of positivity to our own lives. It's definitely something to look forward to every day. I enjoy doing it. I've enjoyed being a part of the hobby for some time now, and I'm sure you have as well. But yeah, if you could just share it with somebody that might be interested in finding something new to enjoy. But for now, this is Wax Talk with Raw Mints. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Bruce.
Thank you for listening.